up, everybody? And this is the Thunder Channel on nootropics, on testosterone, on optimizing performance as much as possible. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the bell to get notified of all the content coming out your way. This broadcast is made possible by a couple nootropic products, which I'll explain later, but as an introduction, number one, the Cortex stack. Number two, the Torque stack. These are both nootropics. And then lastly, if you need to hire me for biohacking consulting, you can do that in under a minute at livecortex.com. All right, so let's talk about bioengineering 100% energy. Look, everything that comes out of this channel is about performance for men. And like once you become your best self, you can basically do anything. And your energy, which can be broken down into physical energy, mental energy, cognitive reservoir, and spiritual energy, is literally, those things are literally the driving force for how productive you are. Also, though, how effective you are in your professional life and how happy you are. I mean, what makes physical objects move forward? A car, a train, a plane, or whatever. Obviously gas, right? But think about torque, the mechanics, metal on metal. It's energy. So that said, energy is your target. I want to talk about bioengineering, the process of bioengineering yourself to 100% energy. I'm going to break it down in very nuanced ways so that you understand my process for how I take people from feeling at 50% to 100%, 75% to 100%, 100% to 150%. How to address large-scale issues with your physiology, get better, and feel fucking awesome. All right, so example number one. Jimmy. Jimmy is unmotivated for life. He wakes up, he goes to work, he isn't excited about work, and he's generally in a crappy mood pretty much all day. Now comes the process, okay? The first thing, just given that sort of example of how Jimmy is functioning, that diagnosis of what Jimmy's life is about, the first thing I would look at as a male is testosterone. You know, what are his testosterone levels? Because you'd be hard pressed to find a male with adequate levels of testosterone that doesn't have much of anything else going on, that feels crappy, isn't motivated, and isn't in a great mood most of the time. It isn't productive. Let's say we do some labs and we find that Jimmy's testosterone is sitting at 545 nanograms per deciliter. That's basically kind of mid-normal range on the reference range of total test. You know, in that case, looking at, Jimmy's base issue, which is motivation and kind of a crappy mood and just like doesn't have the will to pursue life, no zest for anything, like Jimmy's definitely going to want his raise his testosterone. And this is assuming I've ran other biomarkers and looked at whatever else may be going on, supplement regimen and otherwise, and everything looks clear. But Jimmy's test is in the middle of the reference range and it can be improved upon. So if Jimmy is above 39, I'd have him go on TRT, which we'll get to in a second. But if he's below 39, say he's younger than 39, I'd have him optimize his testosterone naturally, in which case I would do the following things. Number one, I'd have Jimmy reduce all of the alcohol, most if not all of the alcohol that he consumes on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Look, the scientific literature is very clear on this. Alcohol fosters the expression of the aromatase enzymes, which are going to make you convert more of your testosterone to estrogen. What that ends up meaning is you're going to have lower levels of testosterone and higher levels of estrogen. And for most men within certain ranges, that is not good. Alcohol, I mean, it's like other than social lubrication, which you can achieve in other ways, the most important of which is fucking self-confidence. But like in every other way, it's bad. It ruins relationships. It makes you tired. It gives you hangovers. It depletes B vitamins, among other things. And it'll make you convert more of your test to estrogen. But have Jimmy remove most of his alcohol. Number two, I'd have Jimmy institute red meat 2 to 3 times a week. The bioabsorbable, bioavailable vitamins and minerals in red meat is pretty much unmatchable. Number three, getting into the more detailed scientific supplemental recommendations for raising testosterone naturally, I'd have Jimmy taking between 400 and 800 milligrams of Fedosia agrestis 4 times weekly. Fedosia is an LH agonist, essentially. It's an LH sort of replacement, which will bind directly to the Leydig cells in the testicles and instruct them to make more testosterone. Number four, I would have Jimmy reduce or remove within the parameters of safety and within the instruction of his doctor any pharmaceutical drug that is anti-androgenic, and there are many of them. You've got to do the research to figure out if you're taking something that is anti-androgenic. Same thing with supplements. There are certain supplements that can be anti-androgenic, and you need to get to the bottom of them if you are taking them. Number five, I'd ensure Jimmy has a balanced intake of macros and micros. No skimping on one major macronutrient, whether it's carbs or whether it's fat. You need to be eating both of them for adequate levels of testosterone. Can't be skimping on one or the other. Number six, I'd have Jimmy bulletproof his sleep, and whether that means taking 3 grams of a essentially an inhibitory neurotransmitter, glycine, before bed to maintain calm homeostasis in the brain while he is sleeping, or something like 1.5 milligrams to 3 milligrams of melatonin to help him to fall asleep and stay asleep during the night. And then lastly, I'd have Jimmy for 10 to 15 minutes, 5 times a week, shine an infrared red light 3 to 6 inches away on his testicles. That's going to optimize mitochondria, the Leydig cells, the test-producing cells in the testicles, otherwise optimize energy and the cellular processes that make you make natural testosterone. Okay, so that's just, and that'll likely solve Jimmy's issue and raise his testosterone, but that's one regimen, right? But do you see how multifaceted it is? We looked at everything else. We looked at biomarkers. Blood seems fine. Nothing else major is going on, but testosterone levels were not at adequate range. Again, you'd be hard pressed to find a man with adequate levels of testosterone that doesn't feel like he wants to conquer everything and is pretty much motivated most of the time. Now, I told you I'd talk about TRT. Look, if Jimmy was 39 or older, yeah, I'd have him go on TRT. Just straight up testosterone cypionate. I'd have him start at 140 milligrams a week. I'd split that up into 2 injections every 4 days of 70 milligrams. Now, alternatively, Jimmy could also run something like 46 milligrams of test cypionate every 3rd day and pretty much achieve the same outcome. If you wanted to, keep it in that sort of 7-day parameter, you could do that. Now, that's just one example, and I want to get to more, right? Of a systematic approach to engineering 100% energy, with the major point being you've got to get this nuance when it comes to your health and energy. All right, let's take Drake as another example. Not actual Drake, like fucking a guy named Drake. All right, Drake feels great in the morning, wakes up, feels fine, but somewhere around 10 a.m. or so, Drake starts to feel tired, can't concentrate, generally feels like crap. In this particular case, it's all about getting nuance. I would vigorously scrutinize everything that Drake is doing from the moment he wakes up to the moment that this starts happening. Like, therein will lie usually what is causing Drake to have a terrible energy dip and start feeling like crap around 10 a.m. It turns out in this hypothetical, right, just for me to illustrate the point, that Drake fasts all night, which most people do, but then wakes up and fasts, so doesn't eat breakfast, then goes to the gym and hard charges and lifts weights and does cardio, and then still fasts after the gym up until 2 p.m. where he has his first meal. Now, this energy dip is happening at 10 a.m. Intermittent fasting, right, and then fasting through breakfast, and then going to the gym and working out, and then still fasting until 2 p.m. is, and I want you to pay attention to this, not ideal for everyone. Maybe fine for some people, but it's not going to be ideal for everyone, despite what you may have read or heard from your favorite guru on the web. Some people with intermittent fasting and working out are going to have energy issues. And by the way, the dogma around this, so many people promoting keto or whatever, intermittent fasting or something, that'll be enough to prevent people from recognizing that they need to make a change. It sort of acts like a mental block. Dogma, you have to be very fucking careful because you will be missing things that are right in front of you if you believe that they aren't negatively affecting you. Drake thinks he's going to run more efficiently on ketones, or read intermittent fasting was good, and autophagy and all this stuff. And yeah, there are cases where this is effective, but again, it's not effective for everyone all of the time. Now, look, the overlord of science is always going to overshadow pseudoscience if you're paying attention and you're not letting dogma get to you. If you learned something from a less than rigorously scientific kind of guru, you may need to question what you're doing. So the first change that I would make is before the gym, I'd have Drake eat breakfast. 2 eggs, some hash browns, a few blueberries, and maybe a piece of bacon. Totally fine. Also, I'd switch Drake's caffeine regimen to bare minimum in the morning when he wakes up, just to kind of get him going throughout the day. And then around the time where this dip in energy happens, I'd have him consume half a cup or a full cup of coffee 30 minutes before the energy dips. I'd pair that with something like 100 milligrams of a very powerful but clean stimulant energy methylxanthine called teocrine, provides mental energy and clean stimulation. And I'd also pair that with 300 milligrams of a mitochondrial and energy optimization nootropic called Alcar. Now, in this hypothetical, executing that strategy, within mere days, Drake's energy problem is resolved. At 10 a.m. he feels fine, and Drake is a happy boy. Except for all the money that he usually loses on betting on UFC fights, which he usually bets wrong, except for the John Jones fight, for those of you that know what I'm talking about. Another example, all right, here's Robbie. Robbie has brain fog all day. His testosterone is fine. He eats well. He sleeps well. He doesn't skimp on carbs or fat or any, macro or micro. Like, everything looks fine. But over the years, he's had debilitated brain fog throughout the day. And this happens to Jimmy, particularly after he eats. There is a case that some people literally get brain fog from eating food. This type of issue, as you might imagine, always resides in the gut microbiota. Now, to the bioengineering part, I would have Robbie run a series of tests which eventually come to identify that Robbie has a histamine intolerance, a lack of DAO, which is diamine oxidase. It's an enzyme that's supposed to degrade or break down histamine. Look, overloads of histamine is one of the most prominent problems that are causing brain fog for scores. I would wager probably millions of people in the United States and, otherwise. So the first thing I do, and one of my sort of longest, kind of best kept secrets, is I would have Robbie start dosing a single strain probiotic, not some sort of like Frankenstein probiotic that you'll get at the store with random lactobacilli and bifido species that aren't targeting anything specific. You may want to watch the video that I recently posted about single strain probiotics. They are what you want to target if you've got gut problems and especially histamine related issues. A single strain called Bifidobacteria longum, which is one of the sole microbes that work to very effectively degrade histamine. I start with 1 capsule of Bifido longum and then have them move to like 2 to 3 capsules a day, kind of gradually over the course of like 1 to 2 weeks. And then boom, literally within either a few days or a week or two, and this is how fast single strain effective probiotics can work at reducing intestinal inflammation and the inflammation that follows from microbiota dysbiosis. The ongoing inflammatory insult is lessened, and then suddenly Robbie has his energy back. No more brain fog throughout the day, functions awesomely and feels great. Oh, and also he's a lot less congested and he breaks down his food better. Like, he digests food better because, that microbe, Bifido longum, and other Bifido species play a very important role in the proper digestion and breakdown of the carbohydrates that you consume. All right, last example, and I think this is really an important example. Let's take Mike, a guy named Mike. All right, now Mike takes nootropics to try to function well cognitively. All else is in order. Everything else looks fine. Testosterone's fine, blood work is fine, doesn't have a histamine issue, no other weird issues, no skimping on macros. He's healthy otherwise. But, Mike's nootropic stacks are hit or miss. Like, they're not giving him energy. They're functioning fine one day and then they're inconsistent the next day, or he gets side effects from the nootropics that he's taking no matter what he does. Now, I peer into Mike's supplement regimen and I find that Mike is taking rhodiola, Tulsi holy basil. He's high dosing zinc because he just learned that maybe that would be a good thing to do to raise testosterone or something. And every morning as a staple, he runs 20 milligrams of Noopept, which is a cholinergic enhancing, cholinosensitizing nootropic compound. He just thought, I'm gonna run Noopept every day, like in the morning, just as a failsafe or whatever. Plenty of people make this kind of mistake. I'm not saying Noopept's bad, but in this case, it's interfering with the other nootropics Mike is taking. So I look at Mike's labs a little more carefully. We get down into what the supplements that he's taking are doing, and I have a hypothesis, right? I'm looking at the zinc. Is the zinc lowering serum estradiol a little too much? Because that can happen. Zinc ultimately acts as somewhat of a mild aromatase inhibitor, which is going to lower your estrogen. Usually good for some men, but too low if you're overdosing zinc can absolutely fucking kill your libido, but also suppress your mood. Like, you need adequate levels of estrogen to feel happy, right? Estrogen itself sensitizes neurotransmitter receptors and particularly serotonin receptor sites. The rhodiola that he's taking is actually kind of countering that a little bit. It's working on serotonin synthesis, but that serotonin synthesis is interfering with the other neurotransmitter action of the other nootropics that he's trying to take. He's taking stimulant-like nootropics, but he's synthesizing a bunch of serotonin at the same time. And his daily Noopept dose, so back to the Noopept, is depressing him a little bit because it's cholinosensitizing. It's making the response from acetylcholine too pronounced in his brain because he's dosing it every day and too high of a quantity. Shouldn't be dosing Noopept in 20 milligrams daily for most people. That acetylcholine binding is hitting the muscarinic and the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, and like we talked about yesterday, that can cause somewhat of a mild, toxic response at the receptor side, which then gives you lethargy, depression, and a shitty mood. We remove all of those supplements, right? We don't need them. We don't need rhodiola in the mix. We do not need high dose zinc in this particular case. We don't need high-dose Noopept every day in the mix. And then suddenly Mike starts getting great results from the nootropics that he's taking. Because nothing that he's doing otherwise in his regimen is interfering with the effect of these nootropics. And all of his other biomarkers are great. All we had to do was remove these supplements. Look, and some people have a habit of like starting certain supplements because they read it was good or even helped them in the beginning, and then they're just uber reluctant to change them or remove those supplements from the mix. They helped me at one time. People get stuck on that. I'm going to take it forever. As a good bioengineer, you always want to be revisiting your supplement regimen to make sure that your initial goals are still being met and that the supplements that you're taking aren't causing brain fog or something, because they absolutely can. You've got to get nuanced about this stuff. All right, so those are just 4 examples, but let's talk about the major point. What is the major point? In order to bioengineer 100% or more of energy, you either need to subtract something that is in your regimen that is causing you harm or is interfering with some other part of your regimen. You need to stop doing something that you believe is good for you because like your, blogosphere guru, Mark Sisson or something, the paleo guys told you it was good. Or you've got to address probable deficiencies, as is the case with lower testosterone, or a lack of histamine degrading gut bacteria. I mean, it runs the gamut what could be ailing you, and you've got to work tirelessly to get to the bottom of this. This is how you bioengineer energy. You've got to work to resolve deficiencies, okay? Find them where they exist. Find them hard. Hunt for them. In the case of trying to bioengineer energy, looking at your regimen, you're either adding or subtracting or removing things. But importantly, you're getting nuanced. You need to be this granular when you're looking at the full picture of your energy. Look, if you don't feel like a beast from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you lay down to go to bed, and sure, maybe a little bit of energy dips throughout the day, but largely you feel awesome, you are doing something that is causing your energy to dip, or you are lacking something that, if you had it in adequate quantities, it would be giving you full energy. And your mission as a bioengineer is to get super granular about these details at a very nuanced level to understand, to elucidate, uncover what these things are. Seem daunting? Absolutely. But how do you want to feel? Okay? That is the question I'll leave you with. Pleasure being with you. As I said in the beginning, this broadcast is brought to you by a couple epic nootropic products. These are performance-enhancing nootropic smart drugs. First of them is a stack called Cortex. I built this back in 2015, been on the market for many years. Motivation, mental energy, verbal fluency. Strong dopamine-enhancing nootropic. You can buy it in the description of this video or at our website, livecortex.com. Secondarily, the Torque stack. I mean, this is 6 to 8 hours of clean stimulant energy. A very, very powerful nootropic stack in its own right. I mean, if you don't have Torque around, you are absolutely, positively missing out. I mean, the stuff, focus, there we go. The stuff, it's like, it's a weapon in the arsenal to always have. 2 capsules and you're in. You can buy it at livecortex.com or in the description of this video. If you need my help and getting extremely meticulous down to some of these finer details to figure out why your energy is not where it needs to be, what levels of testosterone you should have, if there's something in your regimen that is like fussing with the other nootropics that you're taking, if there's a gut problem, a microbiota, a dysbiosis that's happening in your gut that is releasing a bunch of histamine or is triggering an inflammatory response and disrupting neurotransmitter synthesis, this is what I do. You can hire me in under a minute for bioengineering and biohacking consulting at livecortex.com. Pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you on the next one.